Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. And as always, would love for you to be a part of the conversation. The WhatsApp number is 0809 981. And you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on YouTube as well. So you can catch the live stream on our YouTube channel, Smooth981. And don't forget to subscribe. Our analysts are in this morning. It's AB Bozimo and Ikemesit Efiong. Good morning, Ikemesit. Good morning, AB. Welcome.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
And I need a mic.
Yeah. Oh, right.
All right.
Absolutely
Mic
see
found.
that. It's like I'm already in TGIF mode.
I understand.
Yeah. So good morning, AB. Morning, Lagos. Good to see you.
Good morning, guys in the studio. Good morning to all of the wonderful listeners. Happy Friday. I don't know whether it's raining there, but let's make it happy no matter what.
It rained a bit. It rained a bit. Overnight. But
How did I not
that's how it
notice
goes.
that? The power of you know what.
You have a good life.
Okay, let's start off with our first headline. And this one comes from The Nation. President Bola Tinubu returned to Abuja Thursday evening from Johannesburg, where he joined other African leaders to witness the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa for a second term of office.
Okay, this story broke a couple of days ago. There was some controversy over a certain incident that seemed to have happened, but I think was made up by the president, the newly re-sworn in president of South Africa, visiting President Tinubu in the hotel where they had conversations. According to Ajuri Ngelale, they both said that they have similarities in the challenges facing the African nations. So I went and read the speech because the president said he was very impressed by the speech. I went and read the speech by Cyril Ramaphosa, and indeed there were certain things fundamental: crime, the need to have good roads, healthcare, water, education, and all that that they both admitted both countries need. And then I sought to compare the two nations. Of course, South Africa is about 30% larger than Nigeria. It has much better life expectancy, certainly better power, much higher per capita income. We have a larger population. And at the end of the day, I would just say, yes, our president went there. He, of course, that's what many people did. There were many other dignitaries there. He went there. I know it wasn't by boat, it was by jet. I don't know which jet was used, whether they still need to replace it, because we've heard that story of the House of Assembly saying they want to replace a jet when we have a slew of jets out there. Why can't we even cannibalize one or two and put all the 17 jets together into one good working jet? I don't know. But the president has gone here, has come back. He has seen South Africa. A couple of people have seen South Africa, considering that that country was a bastion of racial discontent for decades. If you go there and look at how well developed it is, I would hope that the president, who is also very familiar with other capitals like France and all that, would come back and say to himself, this should be a minimum standard to attain in and around Nigeria. Then Abuja, I hear great things are happening, but Nigeria is much larger than Abuja, and we want to see good things happening all around the country. Most importantly, the people want to have a sense that the country cares about them, their lifestyles, their healthcare, their education, and other things about infrastructure. We're hearing about the World Bank giving us grants and loans and all that. The latest one I'm hearing about that's confusing me because I don't know details about helping us to deal with money from lottery or something. For goodness sake, can we just focus on what we need? Lights, water, roads, healthcare, education. Every other thing can be done by the public, by the private sector. We need those fundamentals for us to unlock the energy and intellect and innovation of Nigerians. Give us the context, and Nigerians will be world beaters. Of that, I have no doubt.
All right, thank you, AB, for that. 0809 440 981. Let us hear your thoughts. Okay, that is random. From Guardian. Sanusi remains emir, says Kano government amid court ruling on Ado Bayero.
Yeah. So for those who haven't been following, and to be very honest, I would not begrudge you if you haven't, because to be very honest, I tuned out of it after the first 2 weeks of the drama. Right. Yeah. So there's this situation right now where the former emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, right, just does not want to go away. So the TLDR is uh, Ganduje, the previous Kano State governor, sacked, effectively removed the previous now emir, and it's becoming a theme this year where we're
Sounds
reversing
like your
roles.
anthem.
So we have exactly, really, it's giving me anthem vibes. Yeah, so he removed Emir Mohammed Sanusi and the third, actually split the Kano Emirate into five emirates. So he appointed five emirs, obviously did this legally and yada yada yada. Fast forward to this year, the current governor, right? The current governor dissolves all the emirates, reconsolidates them back, right? And in the process, right, removes the five emirs, including the person who succeeded Muhammad Sanusi III. Now, that should be done, dusted. We're good. You've served. Blah blah blah. Let's keep it moving. But there's a very very virulently vocal section of the Kano ruling elite that just won't let this go. One of them sued, challenge the entire process, the legality of the entire process, right? That the Kano state government puts into reconsolidating and removing all of those emirs. And the ruling is being interpreted, interestingly, by every party. So essentially, what the Federal High Court sitting in Kano said, right, was, and I am looking, we have a direct quote from the judge, that's why I even feel confident talking about this, right, is so the judge said that in effect, right, all of the legal steps which the Kano state government should have taken, even though they were complied with to the letter, the spirit of it wasn't respected. It's a bit of a weird ruling. But what the Kano State Attorney General actually said in the aftermath, right, of this was that the court validated the actions that were taken by the government. So the abolishing of the five emirates created in 2019, the validation, the deposition, all of that was sustained by the courts. The court just said, so the court essentially said, yes, we recognize that you did it according to the letter of the law, but the spirit wasn't respected or something of the sort, right? And so each side is basically spinning this whichever way they want. For me, inherent in the power to appoint, right, and this is a fundamental precept of administrative law, is also the right to sack. Right. Yeah. So if the entire process for appointment was respected and the entire process for removal, right, was respected, why is everybody having this back and forth? I mean, over this, there's obviously a political undertone to this, which I really, really don't want to get into because it's Friday and yada, yada, yada. Kano is dealing with a cost of living crisis, which will put a lot of other states in the country to shame, right? So there are people who have actually seen a lot of this as just a distraction to, keep everybody's eyes away from the current state government's track record in terms of managing that. And, that's actually the perspective that I would generally want to lean on. And political drama is good on Netflix and Amazon Prime. It doesn't make sense, right, in the country dealing with the kind of economic and social issues that we have. So let's just leave it there for the time being, right? The courts have actually called for the former emir to be reinstated while stating that the state complied with removing him appropriately. So, Nigeria in 2022.
My head is spinning.
Mine was too. And my head is not supposed to spin around court judgments, but yeah.
AB, do you want to say something?
Not at all. Nigeria will hail thee.
Okay. Let's move on to the next headline. And this one comes from Business Day. Nigeria's debt rises by 24.33 trillion naira in 3 months. AB?
Yes, this is one of those numbers-rich stories where anyone would benefit from reading it themselves because numbers really don't translate very well on air. That said, there's a single line in here that encourages me. They said that the increase from external sources did not rise. I'm surprised because we've heard of news stories where we're taking on new, let me say new financing. Maybe they're not loans. However, we have got a massive jump from 30-something trillion to 50-something trillion in terms of domestic borrowing, which is supposed to be used to enhance and support the budget and all that. I remember when the budget was announced at the beginning of the year, the numbers were staggering, towering, and I wondered at least, how are we going to finance it? The key thing for me is that whatever these sums are, the question I have for all of us is, are we actually seeing the effect and impact of this massive increase in borrowing on the lives of ordinary Nigerians? Debt is not necessarily an issue if the means exist, A, to pay it back, and if the purpose for which it is taken on is noble. I aver that it is not noble to take on debt and see those in political office at the federal and state levels living the lifestyles of the rich and famous. That seems to be a lot of where this debt has gone to, in my view, because I don't see it in ordinary places. I will say that I have observed on the East-West Road, a road I traverse frequently, the effect and impact of some of this money. But the work seems to be going on extremely slowly. The rains have now met the work that could have, and in my belief, should have been finished months ago. That flooding that happened in 2022, when then President Buhari said he had 90 days, he wanted a report in 90 days, that never came up. Nobody even answered him. He seemed unimportant to the nation at the time. Now, those floods may come again if our neighboring country, Cameroon, opens the dam. We will have another crisis. So the huge amounts of money, I'm talking in trillions of naira, even allowing for, naira depreciation, a trillion is still a trillion. And Nigerians are going through extreme difficulty. So I just think there's a mismatch between these sums, which you can read about yourself, and their impact in ordinary people's lives. That is the secret sauce that is missing in the current administration. It's not for lack of lofty ideas. It's not for lack of money, because for whatsoever reason, some of these multilateral agencies keep giving us money at 0 or 1% interest, which is effectively a grant. But how is this money converted directly into making Nigerians' lives better? I am yet to see it, though I am first to say the announcement of a policy, except for the removal of fuel subsidy, normally has up to 6, 9, 12, or even longer months before it begins to manifest. One good thing about the external debt, though, is that the external dollar-denominated debt has reduced, and you can see why. Remember when we heard about the minister of the one who is in charge of money, how he assessed those debts that were owing, and then he paid off some after striking off some that were taken on in questionable circumstances. So that is kudos. We're reducing that external component, but my, oh my, we are taking on a lot internally. And well, while you even compared our economy to South Africa, we certainly have a much better debt to GDP ratio than South Africa. So there is hope, but I'd like to see a more direct connection between these debts we're taking on and the quality of lives Nigerians are living. Right now, we're all enduring a very tough time. And the problem is that there's a gap between the ordinary Nigerian suffering and the lifestyles akin to the rich and famous that those in office are living. That is the problem. It's not because we are living hard. We can live hard. We are hardy people. But it makes no sense when a person who tells you, please just go through it a bit more, seems to be flying all over the world in 1 or 2 or 3 possibly new planes, and is telling me to suffer. That is not acceptable to me.
This fascination with them flying jets is actually quite remarkable. Yeah, but you make a good point. I think the extra point that I'm just going to add is I'm a bit concerned about subnational borrowing. So borrowing at the state level, particularly, right? The total component, right, of the entire debt stock, which is now accounted for by subnationals. And technically, with respect to international law, subnational units are not a recognizable entity for the purposes of finance, right? So, the federal government has to back those those debt priorities in order for them to borrow, particularly internationally. That component is increasing. We're having a conversation about the fiscal sustainability of states, especially within the light of the current national minimum wage conversation. So all of this does come together. If you don't borrow with a purpose, and if the debt that you take on it does not become productive capital, then you have a problem, because eventually you have to pay back.
All right, let's look at a few messages coming through. Adigboyega says, I don't know why people are accusing the Nigerian judiciary of involvement in the Kano kingship tussle. The court isn't to be blamed, with different court judgments on this matter. If they are able to settle their matters within themselves, the court will not intervene when they are the ones who brought the case to court.
Why did you read the first one?
Anthony Francis says, what the government, who really don't seem to care anyways, and Nigerians are not thinking about, is how we can pay up these humongous debts. The world is fast moving away from fossil fuels, which we so much depend on to generate revenue. Few years after now, we'll wake up to a new reality, and it'll just dawn on us that we've been sold into slavery. God help us all.
Good point.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. More headlines to come. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So AB, someone sent a message in, right? Basically saying that Zibby sounds like she's on top of the world. She's all roses and sunshine. She's probably been tickled, or she's tickling, or she's in tickle mode. Oh, we lost it. Oh no.
So random.
I know.
But that's what the power of good sleep can do. Like,
I know,
so
right?
happy, Kevin.
Right.
Like, I'm so excited.
So true.
Like, I had to ask her, I'm like, are there any side effects from drinking too much? You went there. You went there. No, because I'm just like, okay, because it's weird.
It is weird.
Like,
it is weird, especially if that hasn't been your experience for a very long time.
It's like I'm almost scared, like this can't be it, but it actually seems to be.
I know, right?
Oh my days.
Yeah. That completely makes sense. Speaking about the long weekend, I was sleeping in and I'm like, is this right? Does this feel right? Like, I'm up by 6 and I'm like, should I stand up? I don't have anything to go to. It was wild.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So
I think
Forgive
we need
me.
to just give ourselves a signal got
For what?
crazy.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it cut me off. I apologize. I'm
Oh, no,
I'm on
it's
the
all
other
right.
phone now.
We were
Okay.
taking a break, so it's fine. But we're going on now.
Right.
It's Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Zibby here. The analysts are in. This morning, it's AB Bozimo and Ikemesit Efiong. And it's 7:49. Please let us know your thoughts. 0809 4440981. Dan Okuda, it's Zibby with an I. The next time anyone spells my name incorrectly, they have to pay me. All right, let's go on to the headlines. This one comes from Daily Trust. PSC, I won't accept illegal recruitment into police force. And this is according to the IGP.
Yeah, so the IGP, Kayode Betokun, basically told the most senior brass, right, of the police force in a meeting in Abuja that despite calls by workers of the Police Service Commission, he would not accept the list of candidates which was the list of candidates recruited as police officers by the agency. Now, how this ecosystem, right, works is that the Police Service Commission is basically responsible for for staffing, HR, welfare, recruitment, right, into the police force, while the MPF itself is the operational organ. They're the people you see on the streets. They're the people that that you interface with and engage with when you're going to any police station. They're the people who say they are your friends. So yeah, and so there's a bit of a tussle, right, between the PSC, the Police Service Commission, and the MPF on recruitment. I should say this is not the first time it has happened. It feels at this point like clockwork. It's like in every new administration, right, Rivers is going to boil over for a bit. We are going to have a constitutional amendment exercise. What else? We get a few Fridays where ZB is happy, like really happy, like now, and the PSC and the MPF must face off, right? And the police boss went to great pains to say this is not us fighting with the commission. The force was not contesting the powers of the commission to recruit police constables, but he said he has a duty to ensure quality recruitment into the force. In my general opinion, when public servants of this magnitude begin to pay fidelity to highfalutin principles like it's my duty, I have a commitment to, it is our responsibility to, there's usually an undertone that really has nothing to do with all of that really high-flying rhetoric. I am not going to speculate, to be very, very clear, but it's interesting that the IGP did not actually state, other than stating that the quality of these guys aren't great. There are many people who argue that the quality of policing in Nigeria is generally on a downward spiral. So yes, it does start, and addressing that does start with, with better recruitment. But the question is, what were the metrics, right, that were agreed between the NPF and the PSC with respect to recruitment? Did that conversation even happen at all? Right? What were the standards and the modalities that were put in place? How do we deal with the fact that we are large parts of Nigeria are under-policed and significant parts, right, are over-policed? But just as a general rule, there are about 330,000 police officers, right, in a country of, depending on who you ask, 150 to 200 million people. That's a police to citizen ratio, which is uncomfortably low. So we definitely need more hands and more legs, right, within the force. The question is, how do we go about it? Why aren't we having a general national conversation about this? The police should be involved in the process, right, of this recruitment, at least at a high level. Let's understand what the standards are. So if nobody is meeting up to the standards, we have a way of pushing back and putting pressure on the system and having all the disciplinary powers that be, right, come to bear. There are so many levels to this conversation, but the IGP just left it really high level. That's a concern.
All right, let's look at some of the messages coming through. This one is from Dan Okuda. He says, how can a federal high court assume jurisdiction in chieftaincy matters? That is judicial aberration of the worst order. What are your thoughts on that, Ikemesit?
Yeah, it's a good point. And you've got several courts that have issued verdicts, particularly on this matter. So the judiciary does need to have a conversation, and especially a conversation around judges just tossing out things that are really not in their jurisdiction. Generally, you think a high court, this is a state matter, the high court of a state is the general place and the general venue where this should be happening. So very good point.
This one is from Ajayi. Ajayi says, good, the president is back from South Africa, and I hope this will translate to giving the country better leadership for the provision of essential services that will make life bearable for the masses. Next headline comes from Punch. Cholera. Death toll rises to 37 as Lagos records 401 cases. Maybe?
A very, very unfortunate situation. First of all, people are thankfully putting out public service, information about how to avoid cholera, but it just goes to tell us that potable water you can rely on to be clean and free from antigens and disease is actually around, whether it's being used in cooking, whether it's being used in cleaning stuff, and whether it's being drunk. That goes to the heart of lack of proper availability of infrastructure, because cholera ordinarily shouldn't still be growing in the way it's growing now there in Lagos. And trust me, it's going to travel around. Lagos is not an island. It talks to public health, the lack of public health. One thing I will say is that from all the things I've seen, some of the lessons we learned from Ebola first and from COVID next could be very, very useful if put in place. No, not masking, but especially the hand washing. But I saw something where they say, please wash your hand under running water. And I said, aha, where is there running water in general in Nigeria? Well, many people have had to put boreholes for themselves, but it's not as common a thing as you'd hope. Whatever the case, I hope and I expect that our health facilities, such as they are, would be on high alert, and then people increasingly on high alert, so that the average stomach upset is not seen as just another thing, but people quickly go and get help. Now, with the cost of medication, how easy is it for people to get the necessary help? We have to understand that this is not something that people be able to solve all by themselves. So government, in this case, states and local governments, must step in to strengthen their capacity to deal so that we can contain this and quickly push back and totally eliminate it. Otherwise, we could have one of those things where people entering buses, people touching, shaking hands and all that. It can spread much easier than we'd want. I think we can learn lessons from before. This is not as serious as Ebola, but it's equally bad for human beings. And we need to have a healthy population if we want to have a productive population. I think it's a shame that in 2024, we are suffering from something like cholera. Cholera is not, it's not no more rocket science. I think pretty much everything about it is known medically, and it simply comes down to cleanliness, sanitation, and how our environments are being managed. So we must do a much better job of managing ourselves and the environments in which we live. And I think with that, we can knock it out of the park.
All right, thank you, AB. Deji says, we're talking about cholera epidemic in Lagos State with the state of hike in foodstuff, people not eating well. I pray we do not begin to experience kwashiorkor in children. And he says, the IGP is just playing to the gallery. We all know how recruiting processes are done across government parastatals. It's mostly man, no man, highest bid and political affiliations with the recruiting process. I wouldn't blame the IGP for sounding perfect, but it is what it is. Tayo says, I guess water finally has an enemy. People should be on alert because the government seems to have forgotten its responsibility.
Tayo, you missed the opportunity to say, I guess water has finally gone on that bridge.
All right. Chris says, cholera will go when we clean up Lagos. There's a need for massive sensitization of Lagosians on cleanliness. Next headline comes from Vanguard. 423 billion naira indictment. Protesters march in Kaduna wants EFCC's probe of El Rufai.
This was just a political parade, right? Some protesters stormed the Kasim Ibrahim house in Kaduna and they called on the governor to invite the EFCC or the relevant security agencies to begin the prosecution of former governor Nasir El Rufai. It's interesting with a lot of these. Is interesting with a lot of these rented political crowds, right? Because they have very, very interesting names. This one is the Kaduna Citizens Watch for Good Governance. So, according to Vanguard, they sang songs in praises of Governor Obasani. They walked to government house, displayed car park cards with different scripts. It was just a rented club. There's not much to this, right? A lot of the story around. I'm not saying they're not genuine questions, right? Which the previous administration in Kaduna, right, should answer. We were talking about debt, right? Kaduna has one of the highest subnational debt rates in the country.
Yes.
A
lot of that was acquired over the past 8 years. So they are important fiscal questions, which in an open, a transparent, and in an objectively run situation or paradigm, the former governor and his cabinet, right, should come through. Right, and discuss, but this is just political. Let's just keep it moving. It's Friday. No politics Friday.
This is what unemployment costs is, because I don't think anyone gainfully employed will be seeking to be paid to protest, I believe.
Yeah,
exactly.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. Right. I mean, often it's sad, right? Because with the exception of a few states, probably Lagos, the FCT, Rivers, a couple of others, in the vast majority of states in this country, government is the single largest employer. Being in government is the one sustainable way to make a living. And unfortunately, being attached and latched onto those levers of political patronage also means there's extra stuff in your kitty. So, Kaduna Citizens Watch for Good Governance. Wow.
It is a very innovative name, isn't it? Let's see what messages are coming through. Emeka Onelum says, with the way Nigerians have previously abused antibiotics and medication, it's probably made the cholera strain more virulent and resistant to medication, hence the need to use stronger and more expensive antibiotics. We hope this crisis is resolved soonest. Deji says, I would like to commend the analysts and Smooth FM for their good works. Listening to the analysis from 98.1 has been enlightening. How can we get our analysts into government? How come we're not having them in government? Save us. AB for president. Ikemesit for vice.
Zibby, after your terms.
She is the president.
And let's take one more message. This one is from Adeboyega. Suddenly, the damsel and the face of the APC, Malam El Rafai, has become like a sleeping water. Could it be as a result of these allegations of fraudulent acts? And he goes on to say, anyone can be touched. That is it for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sending your messages in, and special thanks to our amazing analysts as well. It's Amy Bozimo and Ikemesit Efiong.
Total pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure and privilege are both mine. Hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms. We can talk a bit more. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Friday.
Don't hit me up. I want to. Yeah. Happy Friday.
Will be hit up. It's World Music Day, by the way. So make sure you stay by the radios. We're celebrating.
Is there any music made from other planets? Is there any music made from other planets? What is world music?
World music. Well, according to people, scientists, and NASA, there have been some sound waves that have been coming in.
Space has a sound.
Yes.
Yep.
Is it musical?
It could be.
It could be.
But
so we call it world music, like there's interplanetary music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like how that sounds.
Interplanetary music.
All right, you stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Zibby.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.